Okay. Well, let me tell you a little bit about myself. A couple of you I've met in person. Many of you I have not. I am a I began writing a couple of years ago, and it was more because I couldn't find a book with the kind of heroes and heroines that I wanted. It was either I wanted to smack the guys upside the head or strangle the girls for being such a wimp. And I had all these stories going on in my head, and it was like one thing led to another, and I started writing them down. Well, by doing that, um, I wasn't sure that anyone else would want to read them. I was just doing it for my own pleasure. And then my sister, I told her about it. And the next thing I know, she asked if she could read one. And so we printed out all these pages. And because she's one of those that she reads on the iPad, but she really prefers um, paperback. Just likes the look and feel of a paperback book. And so one thing led to another, and she ended up reading it, and she was like, you really need to go ahead and publish these. And so I did. I took a chance, and I did. And thank God for Elizabeth. It was her encouragement that really kept me going because the first few, it was like I didn't know what I was doing, and it's all been a learning process. But I fell in love with the characters. And as I've gotten more experience with the writing and stuff, the characters have blossomed into this whole new world, as you've probably read if you've read Paul's story. And I just can't wait to find out who's next in that list. So, Narelle, can you go ahead and repeat Elizabeth's question? Okay, you broke up at the very last end. Okay, we may have to type it out, and then I can answer it that way would be better. But I think she's talking about the different series that I have. When I started writing, I started out, I had this idea with, I did Lily's first because her story just wouldn't go away. And Tink's came around. And once I had Tink's done, then it was like, I just fell in love with Tink and the idea of who she was and what she was and her personality. And from there, I had a love for Cirque du Soleil. And River came about. I was just like, okay, now I've got to write this one. And from one to the other, that's, I guess, kind of how my brain works. And right now, I've just gone from doing Indiana, which was a time travel, down to Paul's story. And of course, then I had to throw Tia in there because Tia's was like one of those that came and I had to finish it. And then now I'm working on Cosmos, which is going to be really interesting. It says, I love the current series and want more in them, but I'm curious about new stories are trying to get your attention. Um, can everyone hear me okay? Okay, Pam says yes. Elizabeth says yes. Annette, hi Annette. Judy, hi Judy. Okay, there's actually a couple of storylines that I've been wanting to write about. One is called based on some characters known as elementals, and they're been really pushing me to write about them. Basically, they have the control of the elements with, a different touch of magic in them. And of course, they're in a situation where they're endangered and they're here on Earth. And so what they're wanting to do is they end up trying to escape when they're trying when the government tries to capture them. So that's the, one of the series that I start on. Then I also have a teen book and a children's series. So those have been playing in my mind for a couple of years now, and I'll end up doing those, but they'll be on probably under my full name or under my maiden name when I go ahead and publish those. But as far as the science fiction romance, it's going to be definitely but now I've fallen in love with Haven, and I want to write his story. And then once I get done with Cosmos, you're going to see how Merrick is playing out. Those are just some of the ideas that I've got going on in my head. Plus, I have a few more Heaven Sent series, and I've got Spirit Warrior. And if you haven't noticed, I've added in some synopsis for both Haven, Quinn, and I'll have the synopsis for their stories on my website. Okay, after Cosmos, after I finish Cosmos in his series, it's going to be Merrick. He's the one that disappeared. And I've got a really good heroine for him. Twin Dragons is going to be coming up. Cornelia just asked. She just finished Paul's Pursuit, and she wants to know when Twin Dragons will be coming out. And I'm going to start on it, but it's going to probably be the beginning of next year, probably January, because I have a lot of books in between that I want to write. Okay, Merrick, jumping up and down for that one. You're not the only one. I almost had to quit writing some of my other stories. And I'm like, I know I had to write Cosmos first because his is going to play a big part in the search for Merrick. But I really want to write his because I've fallen in love with the girl. Elizabeth says she wants Merrick's story. Me too, and Derek. Derek's story is going to be really cool. I wish I could give you guys all the stories that are running in my head and have you each write one so that because they're like screaming inside. Let me grab the paper because I have more that I printed out of some of the questions. And if you have any other questions, go ahead. And I want to thank Norel for hosting this. I don't know if you guys are aware of it, but it's about 3:30 a.m. in Australia. So let's see. Okay. One of the questions is, how on earth did you come up with the Zion Warriors anatomy? And I had to write that one down because I'm glad we're doing this because you can see I'm going to turn red. First of all, I have a very vivid imagination, as you probably have figured out by now. I'm not really sure how I came up with the idea, truthfully. As I say, the characters tell or show me what to write. And that was what Corden looked like, and who was I to complain or argue with them? Especially, it's like hot. I really enjoyed that. Okay, let me see, because I had a few more, but basically it's just that's the way the character said, that's the way he looks, so that's what I wrote. All right, Elizabeth wants to know, will Haven's story be released before Twin Dragons, or will you have to restrain him? I'm probably going to try to restrain him, but to tell you the truth, his is such a powerful story. And the girl's name is Emma. And I'm going to have probably end up writing his story and slipping it in there. I know I plan on writing certain stories in order, but if the characters start yelling like Gracie did, and I end up writing hers and Hannah is almost simultaneously, And that's why I think Star got pushed off a little bit because I end up throwing another story in there, just like Indiana ended up coming in. That um, you know, his story is going to be really powerful with her, and he's one of those guys that I think it's going to be good for him to fall in love. Put it that way. It's going to be a challenge for him because the girl is very shy, and right now, she's gone through a traumatic period, and she's not sure how to handle all of this. And she's a little irritated that he won't leave her alone so she can learn how to deal with it on her own. But that's kind of what she's going to need to. You mentioned you started writing because stories were in your head. Do you daydream them? And when did you start with the stories in your head? Well, I daydream 24/7 pretty much. I use it whether I'm riding on a lawnmower outside mowing the yard. I use that time working on computers and waiting for updates. I use that time to dream about it. It's one way that it relaxes me. Stories are always going on in my head. I'll be in the movies, like we were watching Man of Steel last night, which was pretty good. It was action packed, and I kept thinking, oh yeah, this is cool and that's cool, and what I would do better, what I would change, and it's like I'll have the dialogue going in my head, stop, and rewind if it doesn't come out right, and if the guy starts to be a bit of a jerk, it's like, oh no no no, we're not going to go there. So I pretty much daydream 24/7. That's where a lot of in the middle of the night I'll wake up with ideas or I'll have dreamed of something and then I'll write it down. See. All right. Pam talked about the sex scenes. Um, pretty much the sex scenes for me are more it's part of the relationship, and I want to make sure that when the characters come together that they feel like there's the love there. There's not just lust or having sex to have sex. For me, these are romances, and the romances, in any relationship, that's a natural part of it. And it's there's not that mutual respect or, in some cases, curiosity. Um, you know, it's just part of being a couple. And when I write about them, I try to write, from their what's going on in their lives, and it's just a natural progression to the rest of the story. I think one of the best compliments I had was yesterday. Her name is Rosebud. Sent me an email, and she said that she does a lot of reviews, and hers is on the erotica where she writes about the sexy love scenes and this, that, and the other. And she said that she finished Paul, and she says, I know that there was the love scenes and everything in there. She says, but it was so it flowed so well with the rest of the story that it was just she wasn't focused on that. She was focused on what was happening in the story. And I think that makes a really big difference. And it was a big compliment to me that it's not, oh God, here they go again. I don't want it where here they go again, and let me just skim through these pages. I wanted readers to be able to feel like they're part of that. Will we see more of the Eastern Mountain Clan from the Cosmos Gateway? Cornelia asked this one, and yes, we will. Answers to these to help me remember some of the stuff. You have Merrick and Core, who are both from the Eastern Mountain Clan, and there'll be others that will come along. But when Merrick returns back to his clan, then you'll see more of his cousin and everything, and you'll see more of that clan and additional ones. So, and then of course you have Lan and Brock. And to give some of you guys an idea, it looks like in Tansy's story that the guys were going for the wrong girls. Well, it's because they did not realize. And when they go, and it'll all come out. But anyway, there was a little bit of a twist in that story as the guys were going after Natasha and Helene. And when they find out that they've got the wrong girls, then it causes all kinds of mischief. And Helene is not going to be happy that her sister is missing. Okay, move this mic, guys, here. Still? Will I be writing about the Grand Ruler? Yes. Ricky is going to put his little blue butt exactly where it needs to be. Not to mention the mimes and the circus guys. You guys are going to love them because they're really going to come out. And Joe. Let's see. All right, Pam made a really wonderful comment. I don't know if you guys saw that. It says that the books don't feel like erotica to me, that they are romances with great plots, which is what I'm trying to do. I want it to be romance, not just sex. You know, it's a story about two people who find each other. Okay. How do I manage to write several novels simultaneously and not muddle them up? Sally from England wrote this one. And to me, each one is, my brain is kind of like a file cabinet, a very messy one, as you could probably tell from my bookcase back here. I did clean my office, by the way, yesterday, sort of. What happens is I just kind of get lost in each world. And I think one of the things that happens when I'm writing, it's just like when I'm daydreaming, I daydream different stories. But when I'm writing, I get lost in that world, and it's like all happens right there. And then when I go to another one, it's like a totally different file or different universe. And some of the characters, they just don't go with each other. They have to be separated. And so I've been pretty fortunate. I think there's only once where I caught myself writing the wrong name and wrong series. And then I immediately caught it, and it's like, wait a minute, that's not who goes in here. Will Walter have a good role? For those who don't remember Walter, Walter is the ringmaster. And Walter is going to be pretty prominent in Joe's story. You're going to learn a lot more about him there. And then, of course, in Ricky's story, he's going to have a fatherly talk with the big blue Grand Ruler who thinks he knows everything. And he's going to let him know that no matter what the size is, you don't mess with Walter. Are we going to get back to Zion eventually? Yes. I actually have Melanie working on Crack's book cover right now. I can tell you that his heroine's name is going to be Skeeter. That's her nickname. And because she's small and she's quick and she likes to draw blood. And she's going to totally drive him nuts. We hear of the secluded women who did not find a mate. And yes, actually, in Cosmos series, the girls are sent that are unmated are sent to a specific island, and that's actually going to be changing in Cosmos. they're going to learn that trying to do this to the women is not in the best interest of their culture, I guess you could say. And actually, there's going to be a little twist where one of the girls is actually going to fall in love with a human guy that comes to help out with Cosmos. Not to mention you'll see more of Tilly, because Tilly is not going to be happy when she finds out about it either. um, as Julie said, the books have suspense, action, with just the right amount of romance in between. I never thought of myself as a suspense writer, or much of an action writer, but everything just flows. You know, the characters, when they get into a conflict, like the ones that did in Paul's, and I just reread the ending part of Tansy because I'm working on Cosmos and I want to make sure timelines and everything else flow. And, you know, I was reading the part in the warehouse where there was the big fight, and I'm thinking, dang, that's not too bad. But it's the action. It's like with the Man of Steel, or with the one with Iron Man that just came out, or even Star Wars. It's the action that's part of life, and it keeps the books interesting and the storylines interesting. Let's see. There's one. Elizabeth wants to know about Corden's brother, who is undercover. Yes, we're going to find out more about him. He was the one that was kind of like, you know, he was the one that gave the kind of the go-ahead for Gracie to be used. And so he's going to find out what it's like when he finds himself in that position, how much he didn't like it. And he's lucky that Corden didn't rip him a new one. Elizabeth asked, is it hard to write the scenes that make you cry every time you read them? A lot of books, like Lily's and Gracie's and Carmen's, and even the ending of Paul's, I was sitting there crying, like, you know, I was boohooing as I was typing it out. It's not hard to write those parts. Believe it or not, the hardest part, I think, is the action scenes and the sex scenes are the two hardest to write. They're exhausting. The emotional ones, when I'm writing, I never know what's going to happen. I never dream, like in any of those parts, where Gracie would be standing on the cliff, but I put myself in her position. You know, what I feel like, how would I feel if everything I knew was gone, if I lost, you know, everyone that I loved? And by putting myself in that position, I'm able to write those feelings out on the paper. And then when I read back, it feels like I'm actually experiencing it. And that's what happened when I was writing with Lily and then with Carmen. Okay. What do I love the most about writing? That was a good. I think the thing I like the most about writing is seeing their world and what happens. It's almost a relief to get them out of my head and get them on paper, because then another character fills the spot. And then I think at the end, I always go through like a day or two of almost depression, because it's like saying goodbye. It's like the kids have left home, or, you know, you're saying goodbye to a best friend that's been to visit for a while, and then they're going off to return home, and you're not sure when you're going to see them again. And I have to admit, I like to read the books that I've written, because every time I do, it's almost like I'm seeing it for the first time. The thing I don't like about writing is the paperwork. There's a lot of paperwork involved in the background of publishing it, and organization of it, you know, from the book covers to, you know, doing the editing to the revisions, and just formatting. Getting the formatting right for each company is very challenging. I'm getting better though. Smashwords and I aren't cussing at each other quite as much. Does anyone have any questions? I try to get the stories out early if I can, mostly because then that's one more thing for me not to worry about. I am very forgetful. You can ask my husband. I promised to do the clothes the other day, and I didn't. And so he ended up folding them. I had one. It says, out of all my books, who is your favorite male character and why? And at first I was thinking, oh man, that's going to be a hard one. Then I had to say no. The one that immediately came to mind was Corden, and in Gracie's Touch. And the biggest thing is he's a tough guy, and he's always in tight control until he meets Gracie, and then he's just kind of like stunned by, her. This is the way things are. This is what I've got to do, and he's willing to do what he has to. He understands what she's gone through. He's patient with her. He's very loving. He gives everything to her, and he wants to support her. He's not afraid of changing, and I love the way he handled Violet at the very end. She was his hero, and he let her wrap him around his finger. Yes, I'm going to be doing a lot more short stories because there's a lot of characters that deserve to have their stories, but they don't really need the full-length one, although I could probably write one. Tilly and Angus deserve it. Madison Grill, even though they're lizards, I really think they have a wonderful, loving relationship that needs to be shared. And it's a special one where he goes through the challenges to get her, even though she is younger than he is. I like that part, where she's, at 70, she's considered still, a teenager type thing. And, he's the older male that, thinks he knows it all. And I just love her personality. She's just so caring with all of the girls. And the way she handled, Star was really good. And I have the perfect mate for Grandma Pearl. So Grandma Pearl has to have her story too. It's not really hard to write more than one series at a time. The good thing about doing it the way I do it, by jumping from one to the other, I know it's frustrating for my readers who'd probably like to read straight through. But I think if I did that, my biggest fear is becoming repetitious and boring. And so by jumping around to the different stories and the different genres and the different characters, I have to revisit those worlds. So it's like being brand new, and I'm seeing it all again for the first time. And I think that makes it fresh for my readers. With Paul, having written several books before I came and finished Paul's story, I mean, to me, his was a very powerful story about not just the love between him and the heroine, but between the family relationship and his the relationship he develops with the guys, that mutual respect. And I fell in love with the babies. Oh my God, I fell in love with all of the babies, especially Amber and Jade. And they're going to have their own short stories to kind of keep you guys up to post until they meet their mates. Although Traylin's probably going to want to kill the guys. Melanie's spelling is Melina. It's M-E-L-A-N. Melina. Melina. And they call him Mel. and she's from Georgia. So that's going to be cool. Writing her, she's gonna um, she's gonna show them that Southern girls have what it takes to kick butt. Um, if I were given an opportunity to change the personality of any of my characters in any of my books, who would it be and why? I had to think about that one. That one's a tough one, but the first character that came to mind was Jonathan Tucker from Indiana Wild. When I first started writing on him, I was thinking, God, this guy is such a jerk. You know, he needs to. I just wasn't sure I was going to like him, and but I ended up growing attached to him. But it took a little while at first. I wasn't sure, and then I got to thinking, well, this is a guy during this time period, and you know, guys, it was a very male-dominated world, and you know where he was at, it was very male-dominated, and so in a way, he needed to be kind of an uptight prick that learned to get his act together. And Indiana was a good one to help. Oh, I fell in love with Grandma Pearl. I don't care what anyone says. It still bugs the crap out of me that somebody thought of Riley as trailer trash. And they are not trailer trash. And I can't wait for you guys. I should do a contest on this. I've already introduced the male that's going to be Pearl's mate. And I wonder if you guys can figure out who it is. In one of my books. I'll also learn more about when I write Viper's Mate. You're going to get to see, of course, Grandma Pearl. And I'll probably have the short story for her out because they're going to end up coming back and visiting. The good thing about writing Heaven Song and Jacqueline's is you're going to get to see the characters from the other world as well and kind of catch up with what's going on with them. Even though the story's going to be most focused, but it's like having Vox and Paul's story. You know, I love the part where Vox came in, and then at the the guys were all hooting and hollering and carrying on. I don't want to say too much because I promised Pam I wouldn't. She hadn't finished the story yet. The Aleuthians are not going to be returning in Croc's story. Right now, there's the rebellion or the things that are going on in Earth's politics that is causing issues within the council. And so there's going to be more about what's going on with that. And poor Skeeter just happens to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. So that's going to be what happens with her. And I think Riley would skin Vox and use him as a coat if she had a litter. I'm not sure how that's going to be. Pam asked about, yeah, she saw that Mel's grandfather did die. Oh my God, when he died, I was bawling like a baby. I was trying to write it, and then when I I write and then I go back and I reread, and I'm just even thinking about it and start tearing up. I'm just thinking, just how she felt, and he was so close to returning home. And so we're gonna pretty much I can give you this much since you guys are here. Mel is going to return to Earth to lay him with her parents and her grandmother. And so there's going to be that part where she's saying goodbye to him, and she fully plans on staying on Earth. Cree and Kalo, they don't think so. And if you saw the bits and pieces in Paul, you'll see what I'm talking about. Okay, the sad-eyed male from the planning in the conference room. I wasn't sure if you guys would get that. It is Jacqueline, and he is his mate isn't being totally cooperative either, because she's been through a really traumatic time. And you can kind of get a feel for what his story is going to be about. In on my webpage, I posted the synopsis for his story as well. I added those to the pictures. Yeah, I promised Pam that we wouldn't do any spoiler alerts because she'd been gone all week long at a teaching conference, and I didn't want to have to. She was like, "I'll go, but promise me you're not going to do spoils." So I'm trying to keep my promise. Okay, who's Pearl's mate? Does anyone have an idea who it could be? I can narrow the book down if you want. Just let me know. Julie wants to know, will Paul make or enforce any new rules on women for mates? Well, pretty much his only policy is they have to say yes. He just has to clarify specifically with the guys that, listen, when I say yes, it doesn't mean the word yes in any sentence. It doesn't mean you have to go to the bathroom. Yes, oh, I can take them. Right now, that's the way the guys are thinking. Oh, he said the word. That's all that I need. Sylvia joined up. Sylvia, congratulations on the ponies. Or on the foals, I should say. They are adorable. I was looking at some pictures that Sally had posted. And on some foals that were born and stuff, and it was beautiful. And I'm thinking, oh, this is going to be one of those things that's going to be in a future story, Sylvia. I'll just let you know. Samara, if you guys remember Samara, she's going to end up being a maid, and she's not going to be. She's a feisty little thing. Do I have a date for Cosmo's book? Right now, I'm looking at the end of July, probably the very end. But if I'm lucky, maybe it'll be around the middle. So I'm hoping it depends on how it flows. Sometimes the characters just don't want to shut up, kind of like me right now. Does anyone have any other questions or would like to say anything? I'm trying to see if there's questions that I might have. Cornelia, your birthday is the 15th? Think Ariel's story for Grandma Pearl. I'll do my best with Cosmos. I'm actually liking the way his is starting out. By the way, I'm wearing, I don't know if you guys can see this, but this is, Pam made this. This is Ariel's pendant. I thought it was beautiful. I've gotten so many compliments on it. Lily's Cowboys is actually my favorite. Although I have to tell you, there's quite a few that are right in there pushing at her. I think Lily's is my favorite because it was my first one. And, you know, I know some people were a little bit concerned about the fact that I had an angel and I'm, you know, and with 3 guys. But with me, it was not more the angel as a religious, but angel as in spirit. And she had given up so much for others and was just such a good person. And she had so much to give. And like I said, when I write what the characters tell me is going on. And I think that's what makes the story so good. So it just happened to be that that's the way it turned out. And just like with Mel and Halo and Kree. And it's going to be interesting to see, how the two male dragons deal with the one smaller dragon, or maybe how the one smaller dragon puts the two bigger dragons in their place. What new series are in the work? I'm wanting to finish up what I'm working on because I do have quite a few in so many different areas. But as usual, there's going to be, like with Indiana and like with Gracie, those that come to me and that just say, I need to be written. And even Tia did that to me. And so probably it's going to be the one that's been going through my mind continuously right now is one with the elementals. And then there's a contemporary one that I've had going on in my head that is just screaming for me to write. And it's not a paranormal and it's not a sci-fi. It's just, but it's a really special story that I think would work out well. And the picture's just kind of like saying, you've got to write about me. So I'll probably end up writing it as well. Um, it's gone down a little bit faster than I was reading. Okay. I like that. I was trying to talk Pam into selling them, and Pam was like this. She's like, wait a minute, I've got enough on my plate right now. But I'm like, it's gorgeous. You'll do a really great job. I still giggle at Kara, and her personality is just so much fun to read about. And the two girls, I don't know how Traylon's going to survive, and to see what they're going to do with when they get older, especially once Paul gets done training them how to disappear in the woods where Dad can't find them. And
yes,
I could just see, Jade growling at the guys right before they pepper them with fruit and then take off. So the girls are going to get into a lot of mischief. I had one girl just emailed me the other day, and she was saying that she was riding on the train in England, and she said it was perfectly silent. And she was trying to read Choosing Riley, and she said she got so embarrassed because she couldn't stop laughing. And I'm thinking there's been parts, where even I just start thinking about them, like with Kara, and I know every time I read the part with the twins and the story, and the first part where Traylon's like going, don't put to bed with fruit in your hair, and when Mom and Paul come in and they look at him, and he's got half of his, his hair's cut off because he couldn't get the gum out of it, and then the other part's scorched, and he's like, I don't know how this is happening. It's just one of those you start laughing about. Riley's was just one of those. Her personality was just perfect for her personality and perfect for Vox. It was she was fun to write. Because she just had this sarcastic way, but she was very compassionate, and you couldn't help falling in love with her. And then of course I fell with Fred and Bob. You know, but her idea that a piece of chalk would keep these warriors on the other side And, they're looking at her like she's crazy, and then she proved that she wasn't. And I have to say, her handbag came from my purse. My husband weighs my handbag. And he tells me, he says, if he ever needs anything, I've always got it in there. And he asks me why I carry so much, and I tell him, because if you need it, I've got it. Ah, the Frenchman. The Frenchman and Star Story. They will have their own short story. I thought those two guys were hilarious. And you're also going to find that there's going to be some little side stories with some of the males that were in circus are going to fall for some of the females. Um, so you're gonna see that as well. So it's not going to just be the guys; it's girls too. And I think help even things out a little bit. I've had some people ask, and the father, Ajaska, is going to have a mate too. One of the things is, when I get to Viper and Tina's story, Tina's a little bit different than Riley, but it's going to come out that she's got enough of both Riley and Grandma Pearl in her to give Viper what he needs. And all the brothers that are picking on him, well, they're going to get what's theirs, especially when they end up coming back first. Um, the robots that were with the Frenchmen, you're going to see them in Jarman's story, because Jarman's going to have his own story. And I don't know if you guys remember the young girl that Walter saved right before they end up leaving Earth. She is going to actually end up being Jarman's mate. And she's got a soft spot for those two. And so he's going to have his hands full between the robots and this young girl. Walter has a mate. He's married. So I don't know if you remember the part, but he's married, and him and Ricky, him and his wife are Ricky's mom, adopted mom and dad. I have a lot of coming stories, and that's one of the things that I'm hoping to get, quite a few of them written this summer, and then maybe space them out and releasing them. But there's just so many different characters that are just so vivid, and I can't wait to share them with you guys. And I think the biggest thing is I don't know what they're going to do, and that's why I like it so much. With Paul's, I didn't have a clue as to what was going to happen. I knew that Trisha was going to come back, but I never imagined writing the prologue the way I did, but I needed to have that so that you understood what kind of man he was and the relationship he had with his daughter, all the way through to the ending. Sylvia says, why space them? We can read really fast. I wish I could write faster. It takes about 45 days when I'm working to write a novel. And while that doesn't sound like very long, I probably spend, I say on average about 5 hours a night during the weekday, and probably at least 20 hours on the weekend writing. So my husband's been on me about making sure that I have me time. He comes back here and he'll talk to me, and then it's like, let's go for a walk, or you need to go see your sister. You need to get out of the office and way too much time in it, and you need to get a little exercise and quality time. And, but for the most part, he's very, very supportive. He just wants to make sure I have that balance. But I spend a lot of time writing, and it's kind of disheartening. I just found out right before I got to guys that a couple of my books have been pirated and by different websites and posted. I had someone ask, well, of German editions. I am checking into it. I know, Google has to translate, but to tell you the truth, I'm not sure if they're how good that translation is. I really need to have someone who's fluent in German to be able to translate them. But that is one of the things I've been looking at. I know I have a really big following in Denmark, and but I would love to do that and then get them in audiobooks as well. That's another thing that I'm going to be working on.
Oh, yes. Be goody.
Yes, Pam, if you had one in Atlanta, I would have no problem going there. It's a lot closer to drive to Atlanta than it is to Las Vegas. And I like Atlanta better than I do Las Vegas. Plus, I could always stop at Julie's house. Julie, you take me in, won't you? Or we could just all go to Cornelia's house. I haven't seen Germany yet. Julie's in Georgia as well. I'm planning on going to England in March of next year. So I would love to. My husband was talking about, seeing about, we're not sure about driving on the wrong side of the road. It's Americans, we're all backwards. And so trying to get, drive over across through the tunnel to Europe. Yeah, Pam's going. I'll be in her suitcase. All right, we're all meeting, crashing in Nardell's house, okay? Australia, here we come. We'll even try to adapt our speech to it. I think we're all voting for Australia, so you better watch out. You may have a house full before you know what to do with it all. Okay, we're all voting for Australia. All right. Does anyone have any other questions? Does anyone have any more questions? Okay. I wanted to say thank you for everyone that came. And if you have any questions or if you have any comments that you want to talk to me about or anything, I'm available both through email, of course, on Facebook, and Skype. Thanks to Norel, she taught me that, and I've been Skyping with different readers. So, okay, I have one more question. When do we meet Australia?